reality to be focused on me. I'm on TV. I am a Vidiot.
Welcome back to Vidiot On Demand. I'm your host, Fillip Williams, and today you are watching the 7 days of Fillip's Christmas recommendations. Like, comment, subscribe. Consider this my gift to you, a recommendation of something you can watch to get into the Christmas spirit. I'll be including some things that are specific to me and my experiences as a Swedish American, so some of these might seem obvious and others not so much. Just enjoy, and I hope I introduce you to your new favorite Christmas tradition. Garfield. This Garfield Christmas Special is available on YouTube and is a mainstay in my household. Because of its relatively short runtime, I managed to watch it every year. To anyone who might think, Garfield? You mean that weird cartoon cat that the internet likes to warp the original comic strips into something arguably funnier? Isn't this character irrelevant? On both those counts, you might be right, but I dare you to watch this and see if you don't laugh at least a little.
Whoever invented Christmas trees should be drug out into the street and shot.
It's delightful for kids, and it has got a little bit of depth and observational wit for adults. It's a musical too, and with a few catchy songs, it certainly gets you right to the core. Unless, of course, you're a soulless monster that doesn't enjoy musicals. This special has the right amount of comical cynicism and genuine feels, and should warm the hearts of any skeptics with its quotable lines.
It is Christmas morning.
I know that, and you know that.
Bonus fact, the grandma in this is probably the coolest in pop culture history and is also voiced by Pat Carroll, who is Ursula in The Little Mermaid.
Well, you better not touch those ivories until they've had a chance to cool down for a while. Get on down. Chico.
Huh? A Muppet Family Christmas. Not the Muppet Christmas Carol. That one is, of course, very epic and amazing, and everyone should watch that every year. But if you're kind of either tired of that one or just want to get something that's telling a wholly original story, give this one a watch. A few years ago, I was told that the Muppet Christmas Special was available on YouTube. I love the Muppets. Muppets Take Manhattan is my favorite movie. It's the best one. Fight me on it. Pick a corner, I'll be there, and I'll knock your teeth out. Right here on YouTube, you can find A Muppet Family Christmas, and I gotta tell you, it's sweet. When I found out about this one, I watched it, and it had me crying at the end. Just tears of absolute joy. Now, if you didn't grow up with these characters, then don't expect to have the same reaction that I did. This particular special is kind of like Black Panther Wakanda Forever in that you kind of need to know the real world context and behind the scenes a little bit to get even more out of what they're giving you. It does genuinely enhance the viewing experience. But even if you don't know any of that, it's still an entertaining special with fun jokes and perhaps a few narrative detours and a bit of a head-scratching ending. Who's that guy? All in all, it's a nice watch to get into the Christmas spirit. All right, non-spoiler section is over. We need to talk about that. This was the MCU of my childhood. I can't believe it. All of the crossovers you can think of, you always wanted to see them on the screen together. Why weren't they ever on together before? Finally, I get to see the epic crossover. The only thing missing is David Bowie's Goblin King battling the Ninja Turtles over the Dark Crystal. Oh, that wasn't a bad idea. Now I know what to wish for next year.
The most successful Christmas was today.
Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. To whom it may concern, Community is a great show. Dan Harmon, the co-creator of Rick and Morty, really knows how to tell a story that's full of laughs and heart. So it only makes sense that on any list of the top 10 episodes of this show, the paintball one will be at the top, and this Christmas episode will be somewhere represented on the list. This particular episode is the show's first foray into animation, specifically claymation or stop motion animation, which in itself is a reference to the Rankin Bass shorts that our parents had to endure as children. Not only is this really funny, but it also has great gags.
You guys hear that? Humbugs.
Humbugs? Yeah, a whole swarm of them. See? Everyone stay perfectly sincere. Humbugs are attracted to sarcasm.
Wow. Somewhere out there, Tim Burton just got a boner.
It's also a great vehicle to get some introspection on each of the characters. This is a story of found family, after all, that despite all their flaws, do what they can to help a friend. What's not to love? What's that? You don't like musicals? Well, too bad, it's a musical too. And even though most of the cast do not suffer any delusion that they can sing, it actually kind of adds to this episode's charm that they're just getting out of their comfort zone and doing it for a friend, and it makes it feel all the more delightful. So sit back and enjoy a modern Christmas classic. The Simpsons. The Simpsons, available on Disney Plus, need no introduction. In fact, they've been around longer than most of you watching have been alive. And for good reason. The show is a game changer, both for comedy and animation. There have been multiple Christmas episodes over the years. In fact, the very first episode was a Christmas special, Simpsons roasting on an open fire. But I wanted to talk to you about Season 7, Episode 11, Marge, Be Not Proud. This one focuses on an all too relatable moment on any kid's life. Bart steals a video game and has to deal with the fallout of that decision.
Oh, here you go, little fella.
No, not for him.
Oh, I see.
Oof, the moment that Marge actually finds out the truth is one of the most heartbreaking, and it really sets the tone for what's at stake here. This particular story is so down to earth, the writers actually had to come up with reasons for this episode to be animated at all, which they do in some quite creative ways, which in my opinion only strengthens the relatability factor. The ending is so good I do not want to spoil it. Lessons were learned and hilarity was had, but sometimes a little gesture can mean a great deal.
My little bitty Barty. Mom.
By the way, I'm actually wearing a Simpsons holiday sweater, and I thought you might enjoy it. If you could see this, pause it right there at the right moment. You might be able to see everything, I don't know. Doctor Who, A Christmas Carol. For the longest time, I was not a fan of BBC's sci-fi hero. My first introduction to the character was probably in some random comic book shop where you would see still images or trading cards of the show, and I always thought they looked very cheap. Every time I would see an image, I would think, oh, this looks way too silly. I mean, I cannot take it as serious as my space wizards or genetically modified terrapins, you know? So imagine my excitement when Matt Smith's rendition of the character had me genuinely excited about what this whole character's world was. Weeping angels, the silence, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Those nightmare concepts were golden, and seeing a witty alien character outsmart his opponents was a novel idea. And apparently this show had a history of doing Christmas specials. This was a great place to start because it put a spin on an old classic, A Christmas Carol. Everybody and their mother has made a version of this story. In fact, the best of list of adaptations of Charles Dickens' classic story could be a video of its own. Note to self, buy eggnog. The best thing about this episode is that it's aware what it's doing, and it's actually baked into the narrative. Who better to manipulate a heartless old bastard than a nerd with a time machine? I genuinely love the twist on this old formula, and Matt Smith's characterization is so delightfully clever.
Aren't you gonna tell me it's dangerous?
Dangerous? Come on, we're boys. And you know what boys say in the face of danger?
What?
Mummy.
Michael Gambon is great as the Scrooge stand-in, and Catherine Jenkins showcases her wonderful voice, which almost makes this a musical. Tons of cheeky Christmas fun for the whole family, well worth a watch. Last year, I made a Christmas recommendation video with some friends, Lincoln card over here, where we talked briefly about a movie called Anna and the Apocalypse. It was a comedy zombie film that took place at Christmas that also happened to be a musical. You see where I'm going with this? I didn't really like it, actually. In my opinion, it didn't do any of those things very well, especially the musical part. Everybody knows that if you do a musical right, all other shortcomings are forgiven. That's just science fact. So imagine my surprise when Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell released a trailer for the movie Spirited. And I gotta admit, at first I thought that this was not gonna be the real musical, or it was just gonna be maybe a song here or there, or maybe they just joke around a little bit with the formula. I don't know. I thought the two leads were just gonna laugh off the entire thing, really. But I sat down and watched it and was so pleasantly surprised that it was genuinely a good musical. This is a full-on, shameless, giving it your all, gosh darn musical. The songs by Benji Pasek and Justin Paul of The Greatest Showman and Dear Evan Hansen fame are clever and at times beautiful and give the flick an air of emotional legitimacy. The story is basically Scrooged, but now they sing. The script is witty and does a good job recontextualizing the well-trodden universe as to not be the same old story, but something wildly going against the grain.
Hey, I'm haunting you. You can't just run away from me when I'm haunting you. Hello?
I love Octavia Spencer in this. She's wonderful. And Sunita Mani's character, I mean, talk about a glow up. Because she was in the Netflix series Glow. I know it was a bad joke, but I stand by my point there. She's hot. All in all, I think I'll actually watch this again with my family. So I definitely say, recommend, check this out. What? Oh, it's on Apple TV Plus? Ooh. Nissen är på loven. In the early 2000s, the reality TV boom put a horrifyingly ugly dent in our pop culture landscape. Once greedy executives realized how much money they could make off of the low-effort film everything but only put out the highlights on TV approach that was it. Over 20 years later, and we're still paying for it. Eventually, shows had to get more crazy and out there just to retain viewership. That is where this Norwegian show stepped in. Allow me to read the Wikipedia article on this. 24 Santas are gathered in a barn to compete for the title of the best Santa. They are split into two teams, the Greybeards and the Whitebeards. Every day they compete in contests related to Christmas. The losing team has to meet in the barn parliament to vote out a member of their team. They are voted out one by one until the strongest Santa is left on Christmas Eve. At first I thought this was cute, you know, it seems like a nice idea, I like the theme, and of course the whole Christmas calendar aspect was fun, but then I started watching it and realized, this is hilarious. Basically, it's a scripted satire. Most of the cast are made up of comedians and actors, save for one, the host of the show, which was played by Norway's Ryan Seacrest. I have fond memories of watching this with my mom every day in December of 2001. There are so many gags that I liked in the show, but by far the best one was this ridiculous running gag where this guy keeps getting voted off the show. Every time the characters have a chance to vote somebody off, it almost always was the same guy. And because of some ridiculous rule, they always say, well, if something came up, hello again, this guy would get the chance to come back because he was voted off first. And he seems like such a good sport about it. He seems like a nice guy, but for no reason, they just hate him and they keep voting him out. It's just such a great gag. I love it. I like this show so much that one time, like 15 years ago, I was in like a DVD shop, one of the last ones around. I happened to come upon this show, so I actually own it on physical media. Look at it. It's pretty cool. I believe the same producers tried to make a spiritual sequel of this show the following year where they decided to spoof The Bachelor, where one Santa had his pick of 24 beautiful ladies to become his Mrs. Claus. But to my recollection, it didn't really have the same spirit and it didn't really hold up. But then again, it was so long ago. I just remember I didn't keep up with it, and so it just kind of fell by the wayside. I'd like to kind of find that and see if it does hold up. Now, it has come to my attention that America bought the rights to this show a while back, and they made something called
Santa's in the Barn. Who wants to see America's best Santa?
Hosted by comedian and podcaster John Gabris. From what I can tell, it feels like the producers simply looked up the Wikipedia article that I read for you earlier and took it at face value without realizing that this was supposed to be a satire, a scripted send-up reality shows. But instead, They just found a bunch of crazy Americans to do crazy reality show bullshit, not adding any of the intended subversive commentary, and just made a cheapo, sincere reality show. Yuck, never watched it, didn't know it existed, and apparently neither does anyone else. Seriously though, the original Norwegian show was so good in my household that I do have half a mind to crack open this DVD and actually give it another go, just to see. Does it still hold up? I remember loving this. So if you can find this show, are familiar with Norwegian, and or have a copy with accurate subtitles, then I say give this one a watch. By all means, check out this wonderful Christmas special. I hope you enjoyed this video and have found a new Christmas tradition. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm Fillip Williams. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and all of those other social media places. I hope you remember me when you become rich and famous.